Hello students, today we are going to discuss check and types of check. So now, as I previously said, check is an instrument in writing containing an unconditional order addressed to a banker, signed by the person who has deposited money with the banker, requiring him to pay on demand a certain sum of money only, or to the order of a certain person or to the bearer of an instrument. This is the proper definition of a check. If you see in a section 5 of a Negotiable Instrument Act 1881, defines the check as a bills of exchange drawn specially on a specified banker and not on expressed to payable otherwise than on demand. Now, this is the specimen of a check. If you see, there is an account pay check, date mentioned here, who is the person, pay to whom, pay to Anil Sharma. Next, the name of that bank, who pays that person, what is the amount, this is the amount, what is the account number, this is the account number. This is the specimen of a check. Okay. Now we know the essential of a check. It is an instrument in writing. It must be drawn on a particular bank. It must not contain an condition, any condition. It must be signed by an account holder. It also payable on demand. It must contain an order to pay certain sum of money. A check is payable to a specific person only. This is the main essential of a check. You must write every point side by side in your copy. Next, how many types of check we are seen? First one is bearer check. Next, order check, open check, cross check, antedated check, post dated check, stale check, and multi-rated check. So in my next slide, you see bearer check. The word or bearer printed on the check and it is not cancelled, then the check is called a bearer check. Here it is written or bearer. Look at the picture, or bearer is written here. Printed on the check means on the check it is written on or bearer and it is not cancelled. It is not cancelled, then the check is called a bearer check. A bearer check is made payable to the bearer. That is, it is payable to the person who presents it to bank for encashment. In simple words, a check which is payable to any person who presents it for payment at the bank counter is called a bearer check. So, who is the person is not a mandatory. Those who goes to bank and give that check to the bank, that person is called a bearer check. Next one is order check. The word or order is written on the face of the check. The check is called an order check. Or order is written on the face of the check. Okay. Or order is written on the face of the check is called a order check. Here it is written or order. Such check is payable to a person specific therein as the pay or to any one else to whom it is endorsed. Endorsed means जिसके पास उसको पैसा देना है, that is transferred. In our previous, here it is written, if you see or order, it is written here or order, sorry, or order is written here, or bearer or order. If it is a written or order, then it is called order check. If it is written or bearer, then it is called a bearer check. If it is the written in order or order, then it is called an order check. Okay. In our next slide, you see open check. When a check is not crossed, it is known as open check, or an uncrossed check. So you write that check, another name of the check is uncrossed check. This check may be cashed at any bank, and the payment of this check can be obtained at the counter of the bank or transferred to the bank account or the bearer. An open check may be a bearer check or an order check. Here it is written, very important point. An open check may be a bearer check or an order check. As you know, bearer check means or bearer is written here. Order check means or order is written on the top of that check. Magar on open check may be a bearer check or order check. Next, cross-checked. Cross-checked means drawing into two parallel lines. Here the two parallel lines. If you see the two parallel lines, two parallel lines. On the left corner of the check, with or without additional words like account pay only or not negotiable. That word account pay only or not negotiable will be written within that two parallel line. A cross checked cannot be encased at the cash counter of a bank, but it can only be credited to the pay's account. This is a safer way of transferring money than a uncrossed or open check, because in open check anyone can pay that money to the bank counter, but in cross checked only that person who hold that check will pay that money, who hold that check and whose name is there on that check will be eligible for collect that money from that bank. A cross check cannot be encased, here it is written, at cash counter of a bank, but it can be only be credited to the pay's account. Remember that pay's account is very important. That account, pay's account, very important. Okay. Next, antedated check. A check which is drawer, which is the drawer mention the date of earlier than the date of which it is presented to the bank. It is called an antedated check. Antedated check means earlier than the stipulated time. For example, if the check paid on 10th June, written on the check, but the drawer mentioned that the date earlier than the date on which it is presented to bank, it is called an antedated check. Means, for example, 9th June. Such check is valid up to 6 months. Very important, from the date of the check drawn. Means the check in which drawer mentioned the date earlier than the date on which it is presented to the bank, it is called an antedated check. Drawer mentioned that you can collect that money before that date. Post-dated check means check on which drawer mentioned a date which is yet to come, future date, to the date on which it is presented. It's called a post-dated check. Here it is written an example. A check presented on 10th January 2012. You write 2020. 10th January 2020 bears a date 15 January 2020. I repeat, if a check is presented on 10th January 2020 bears a date of 25th January 2020, it is post-dated check. If the check presented 10th January 2020 but it bears on 25th January 2020, it is called a post-dated check. The bank will make payment on or after 25th January 2020. Is called a post-dated check. It is antedated check or pre-dated. This date means the date is payment date is 10th June, but you collect in 9th June. But the payment date is 10th January, bears that 25th January. 25th January, in between that 10th January and 25th January, the check cannot be encased. The check can be, the bank will make payment on or after 25th January 2020. It is written 25th January 2020. Next is stale check. If a check is presented for payment after 6 months from the date of check, for example, the date is 1/1/2020. After 6 months means 1/7/2020. Okay. After 6 months. If a check is presented for payment after 6 months from the date of the check is written 1/1/20, it is called a stale check. After expiry of the date period, no payment will be made by the bank against the check. After expiry of that period, no payment will be made by bank against that check. A stale check is not honored by the bank. So this is very important check for your exam point of view. Next, multilated check. When a check is torn into 2 or more pieces and presented for payment, such check is called a multilated check. The bank will not make payment against such check without getting confirmation of the drawer. So multilated check means when a check is torn in different pieces. We know in our present day life, some check and some money will be torn because of several use. If the check, in the case of check, if the check is torn into 2 or more several pieces and presented for payment, such check is called a multilated check. The bank will not make payment against a check without getting confirmation of the drawer. So drawer confirmation is very important for multi-rated check point of view. Next, crossing of a check. Crossing of a check means drawing two parallel lines across the face of the check. Thus, crossing is necessary in order to have a safety. Crossing check must be presented through the bank only because they are not paid at the counter. This is very important point. Crossing is a popular device for protecting the drawer and pay of a check. So this is very secure check, crossing of a check. If crossing is there, then you are secured. Types of check. Here it is written general crossing and special or that restrictive crossing. In our next class, we discuss crossing of a check. So in our today's class, we discuss how many checks are there. So in our next class, we discuss crossing of a check. So you must write each and every point for your future exam purpose. Okay.